question before we begin?
No, I just thought that maybe I'd share how I'm recording this. I've just plugged in a Zoom to my computer, and um, and I'm recording directly onto the device. I don't know if that helped you or the person who was asking about it, but I'm just recording directly from my computer. Excuse me, just ate lunch.
Thanks, Amy. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining the 1:30 p.m. Monday, June 28th media briefing regarding the I-70 closure in Glenwood Canyon. We'll get started in just a couple of moments here. Hi, everybody. You've joined the 1:30 p.m. media briefing on Monday, June 28th for the I-70 closure in Glenwood Canyon. I'm going to give everybody just another moment here to join. We've got a lot of folks coming in, so we'll let everybody have a chance to make sure their audio is working and they're ready to start taking notes. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining the June 28th afternoon media briefing. It's 1:30 p.m. this afternoon. My name is Elise Thatcher, and I'm the Northwestern Colorado Communications Manager for CDOT. Today, we have an update on cleanup efforts in Glenwood Canyon. This is between exit 116, Glenwood Springs, and 133 at Dot Zero. We've got a couple of folks with us today to explain what's been taking place today and efforts to reopen the roadway. We had mentioned we're hoping to reopen eastbound traffic today and possibly westbound. So first, I'm going to hand it off to Fred Cummings. He's one of our maintenance deputy superintendents. Please note that in the chat, I've included everyone's names and titles, as well as the link for the media kit. So first, I'm going to hand it over to Fred for an update on what's taken place today. Go ahead, Fred.
Thanks, Elise. Good afternoon, everybody. So, yeah, you know our closure points. We are closed currently at the 133 westbound dot zero and mile mark 87 or exit 87 West Rifle. Today we were hoping for 12 p.m. opening, but we came across a couple plug drains. So we secured a vac truck. We now have the drains opened and have a couple water trucks cleaning that mud off the road. That debris flow tends to be a little slick. So we wanted to get that washed off and currently brooming, and we're hoping for a mid to late afternoon on getting eastbound open. So once we get eastbound open, we have the debris removed from westbound up top, and we'll take those resources that we got down eastbound, move them up top, and it's probably going to be a mid to late evening opening on westbound. Wanted you to know our resources there. We have 24 folks, 8 of those people manning the closures. We've got 12 trucks with operators operating right now, 3 loaders, 1 excavator with operators. And yeah, that about covers our resources. So any questions?
I'm going to steal the mic back away from Fred here for just a quick moment before we take questions. Thanks, Fred. That's a very helpful overview. And one thing that we wanted to make sure we covered for several of you who are providing local media updates is we wanted to make sure we were clear about what options Roaring Fork Valley residents and workers have for getting from, say, Rifle or Parachute over to the Roaring Fork Valley. So a quick note on local access. Fred, can you give us that quick update?
Yeah, Elise. So what we do at eastbound, it's the eastbound closure at mile mark 87 West Rifle, is we get everybody off there, but we keep Highway 6 open for local traffic only, Elise, which carries them up to the exit 109 on I-70 and can get them to Glenwood Springs and then up Valley, Aspen, Carbondale, and El Chabel.
So that means, thank you, Fred, that means that until eastbound reopens, we've got folks detouring at exit 87 north if they are not local, if they're through traffic. If they're local, they are taking US 6 from exit 87 to exit 109 at I-70, getting back on I-70, heading east to Glenwood Springs. And we can answer any detailed follow-up questions about that at the end, of course. I know many of you are covering that very closely. Okay, so back to the big picture. We know many of you have questions about mudslides, the area where the flow came down yesterday and Saturday. And so we've got Bob Group on the call with us again today. He's CDOT's Geohazards Program Manager. And so he's got an overview of that location, where the slide came down, and then any updates that we might have today. Go ahead, Bob.
Thanks, Elise. For those of you who were on the call yesterday, we don't really have too much of an update in terms of conditions on the ground. One positive thing is that we modeled all of these drainages for debris flow potential after the fire last year, but you don't really know what you're going to run into in terms of actual events until we get the rainfall on the slope and you see, how well reality correlates with the modeling that you were doing. And in our case, it actually correlated pretty well. So it doesn't do a whole lot for us in terms of highway opening, but it helps us kind of anticipate, future impacts and event size. So the biggest variable right now is not necessarily conditions on the ground, but it's going to be the type of weather that we're getting, how long these rainfall events are, how intense they are, and very specifically where they are located. So the 2 areas that flowed are in adjacent drainages. And one of them flowed one day, the next one flowed the next day. So really the only difference there was where the storm cells happened to come through and land on the ground there. So that just goes to show how sensitive this is to the location that those storm cells are tracking. So I think our biggest challenge going forward is going to be, getting the forecasting of those events and working with NOAA, the National Weather Service, to get a better handle on that. And hopefully we'll get some, we'll work with them to get the best forecasting that we can for these types of events that might be coming through.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, I think we are ready for questions in record time. I see a couple in the chat. If it's possible to raise a hand with your question, that's another great way to make sure that we get to your question and have it answered. So first I'll go to the chat. Nathaniel Miner is asking about any updates on the bike path. Great question. So the bike path is always closed if the road is closed. It's not safe to have folks in there by foot if it's not easy for us to clear them easily. Often the bike path is closed before the road is closed as a preemptive safety closure that's in place, for example, during a flash flood watch. So in this case, while we have the road closed during an incident, during cleanup after a mud flow, or mudslide rather, the rec path will continue to stay closed until the work is completed, the road is reopened, and we've assessed that it's safe to reopen the recreation path. Second, I see a question from Amy Marsh about vehicles not being allowed on I-70 between Rifle and Canyon Creek. This is eastbound. That is my understanding. Fred, if you'd like to confirm, go ahead and jump on in, but that is my understanding regarding vehicles eastbound on I-70 between Rifle, specifically West Rifle, exit 87, and Canyon Creek.
No, that is the case, Elise. We try to get everything off at the 87. We allow them to get back on, again, local traffic only at the 109, so they can go from the 109 to the 116, get back into Glenwood.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Fred. Eric, first I see the Post Independent has their hand up, and then we'll go back to the chat box.
Thanks, Elise. Just before this call, got a note saying that Cottonwood Pass is now closed due to a rollover. Can you confirm that?
So Eagle County is the best contact for confirming activity on Cottonwood Pass. So I don't mean to be unable to help you there, Peter, but they are the folks managing it, so they would know absolutely for sure what the conditions are up there. If you need help getting a contact for them, I'm happy to help you at the end of the call here, though. Okay, and Eric, English, I see a question from you.
Hi, yes, this is actually Liz with Denver 7 News. Two questions. First of all, when you talked about the westbound timeline reopening, you just said kind of mid to late afternoon. Do you have a more specific, time on how many more hours we could be looking at?
Fred, I'll go ahead and let you take that one, and then I'll follow up with any details if we need to.
Gotcha. And I'm sorry, I didn't catch the name. Did you say Lisa?
Liz.
Liz, sorry about that, Liz. Liz, so I believe I heard you say westbound reopening mid to late afternoon. No, it's eastbound that we're going to be able to open mid to late afternoon. We are currently washing it and brooming it. So yeah, we're shooting for a mid to late afternoon on eastbound. Westbound is a different story. It had a bigger flow up there. We have the debris moved, but we still have to do a lot of washing, clean some culverts up there, and do some brooming. So we're thinking a late evening on westbound. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And then my other question was, I think this is one of these situations where I know CDOT has been warning the public and saying, hey, we are concerned. It's not a matter of if this is going to happen, but when. But I think it's one of those things that until this happens, people aren't fully prepared. So what would you tell the public, just going forward, and the fact that we could very well see, more closures and potentially more mudslides like this in the future?
Was that to me, Liz? Were you asking me this question?
Hey, Elise, can I grab that one?
Yeah, go ahead. So this is Regional Transportation Director Mike Goolsby. Go ahead, Mike.
Liz, thanks for the question. And I think one of the things that I guess I'd revert back a little bit. We've been in the planning stages with the Forest Service and the local partners for quite some time. Since this happened since the fires happened last year, to set a plan in place. And I think one of the things, and we've tried to communicate locally quite a bit and coordinate with everybody to make sure that we can keep everybody safe to start with. I think the biggest thing is fortunately or unfortunately, we haven't had a lot of weather so far this spring into early summer. If we'd had a normal wet spring like we normally do, we probably would have already experienced a lot of this. So I think the piece I would communicate is it's a double-edged sword right now with not having rain or having rain, right? So I think that's the biggest thing. I would just, we need the moisture, but we just don't need it concentrated in Glenwood Canyon, and we just ask for everybody's patience.
Thanks, Mike. Next, we have a question from Jesus Armando Carrasquel Torres. Jesus, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your last name there incorrectly. So we are working on having a Spanish speaker available for Hispanic media. If you could drop your contact info in the chat box, I'll make sure that we include you with any offerings that we're able to make. Does that help answer your question? Sounds like he may or may not be on the call. Oh, great. Okay. Sounds good. Next, we have a question from Dana Caulfield. Dana says, what is the forecast for the next few days over the stretch of I-70? Is more heavy rain anticipated? And are there other areas we are concerned will slide? So there is rain in the forecast for the next few days in this area. We do ask for your patience and the traveling public's patience as we continue to monitor and respond to any slides that may take place. As you can see, based on the activity on Saturday, Sunday, and today, we are working as quickly as possible to safely evaluate any slides, respond both in clearing the canyon, enacting a closure, but also clearing and reopening. And you can tell from those photos, there's quite a bit of material that can come down. So first, thank you for your patience. And I do know that we are coordinating with the Utah Department of Transportation and the Kansas Department of Transportation to reach as many motorists as possible about that awareness about potential closures this week. We'll all be excited when we can reopen all lanes today, knock on wood, but there's very likely closures this week if the forecast plays out as it looks like it will. So let's see. Are there other areas we're concerned about will slide? I would say, based on what Bob has said so far, it really depends on where the rain comes down. So Bob, I'll let you weigh in if you'd like to, but it depends most on where rain comes down in the canyon as opposed to areas that might be a little more vulnerable. Bob, you can correct me there if I'm wrong.
Yeah, you got that right. So we modeled a number of different drainages in the canyon. There are some others that have shown a similar likelihood or susceptibility to flowing. And then there's a handful more than that that have shown a slightly lower chance, but that doesn't necessarily mean that those are, that those are immune or not going to flow. It just depends on where that rain comes down. And then the intensity of the rainfall and how long it lasts. Those are kind of the big variables in determining whether or not an area will flow.
Thanks, Bob. Next, we have a hand up from, I think from Eric English again. Oh, I'm sorry, I think that's Liz.
Oh, sorry, my hand was, I just never unclicked it. I apologize.
Okay, no problem. From Nathaniel Miner, the question is, what does Cdot do with the mud? Fred, maybe you can tell us a little bit about where that material is going that we've been moving off of the roadway so far.
Yeah, Nathaniel, we have designated rock and debris storage areas all along I-70, well, along all our routes. So we've got 3 locations at this particular flow. Down at exit 109, South Canyon, we can haul debris to. There at No Name Tunnel, eastbound, we've got a significant wide spot for storage. And then we also use a .0 cinder pit up at the .0 area.
Thanks, Fred. Okay, I'm not seeing any other hands up or questions in the chat. And as I mentioned, our Regional Transportation Director, Mike Goolsby, is on the line. So I'll also pause for a moment in case he has anything else that he'd like to share. And if not, then we'll go to a question from Amy Marsh.
I think the only thing I'd like to share, or I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to join us. I really appreciate the partnership, appreciate the opportunity to get the information out, and I think it's gone really well. So thank you all.
Well,
thanks, Mike. Yeah, go ahead. One last question from Amy there. Go ahead, Amy.
Yeah, I'm just curious, sort of following up on the mud question. What do you actually do with all of that earth? I mean, you've got it stored, then what happens?
So the question is, do we have a plan for the mud or material that we've removed? If we've got a plan, you can let us know, Fred, and if not, I can double check on that for you, Amy, with our operations group.
Yeah, no real plan, but we will definitely get with our environmental department because we can, we've got shoulders eroding and things like that. So, if we could, we might be able to use this product or byproduct in these locations. So I don't know if that helps answer the question. We're just going to sit on this one for a while.
Thank you, Fred. And I don't think we have an estimate of how much mud or debris have come down. Fred and Bob, you can correct me there. I don't think we do, and we can certainly keep you posted, Nathaniel, on when we are able to kind of get a sense for that. Okay, so next we've got a question from Nita, saying thank you. Thank you very much, Nita. We do our best to keep you all informed. Jennifer Brockman with Fox 31 says, will we have a recording? Yes, we are recording now, and we'll add it to the media kit. Please see at the top of the chat, there's the link for that media kit. It's also been in the most recent advisories and releases. Vicente Arenas from a TV station says, what will be the most difficult part of removing this debris? We'll answer this question and then we'll probably have room or time for one more question after that. So this question is, what will be the most difficult part of removing this debris? And Fred, I think that might be a good question for you.
Yeah, the most difficult part of this is it's a debris flow. So it's just soup. It's hard to contain and hard to clean up. So like I say, having to wash the highway because it's slick and everything like that, and then containing our stockpiles with this stuff. So just keeping it contained and getting loaded in trucks and hauled off.
Thanks, Fred. Okay, we've got one last question, and that's from the Post Independent. Will CDOT be requesting more equipment to be made available for cleanup? And if not, why? So last question, and Fred, you're the lucky guy who gets to answer a lot of these questions today. Are we requesting more equipment for this cleanup?
No, like I say, we've got most of the debris flow cleaned up. We've got 2 water trucks and 2 brooms that are right now just getting, hopefully getting close to opening eastbound, and those resources will go up. So most of the equipment to haul off the debris, we're done with basically. So no more resources, we hope.
Elise, if I could, the one thing I'd also throw in there is, due to the confined space that is the canyon itself, there's only so much equipment and so many trucks you can get in there at any given time. So Fred and staff have done a really good job of making sure it's safe for our folks to be in there and not being on top of each other. So it's a fine balance between getting a lot of resources and equipment in there and getting just enough to be able to do what you need to do to get the road open.
Thanks, Mike. That's a great point. Okay, thanks everyone. If you've got additional questions, I will put my contact info in the chat right here. You can also put your question in the chat if you'd like and your email address, and we can follow up with you that way. Thanks so much, and have a good rest of your afternoon.